Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Kilohertz and welcome to another video in my how-to series. So today I'm going to be talking about vinyl wrap, how you can apply it to the car to cover up any chrome exterior trim. Now, it seems to be quite a common fad at the moment to make sure that any chrome on the car is covered up and given like a body coloured look. So in this video I'm going to actually detail and go through how you cover up the chrome strip on your boot lid and replace it with vinyl wrap. Now, I actually did this over a year ago and I never got around to filming it. And I'll just show you what the issue is now, however. And the problem is that you get quite a lot of scratches from people's fingernails and rings and so on. So I'm going to have to actually replace this. And it's a good opportunity to make another video. Now, it's also quite a common trend at the moment to make the actual badges black, which you can do the same process. And also the side silhouette of the car around the windows is chrome. Now, I actually prefer it on a CLS, the fact that you can actually see the kind of shape of the car, which differentiates it from an E-Class. And you've also got the badges on the side, which can be done, and not to forgetting the front grille and so on. So in this video I'm going to go through all the different parts that you need, and as well detail the process of how this is done. Okay guys, let's have a look at all the different parts you're going to need to do this mod. So starting with the very obvious, you need to get yourself a decent quality vinyl wrap. Now this I've had in my garage for around about 5 years or so, which explains why it's a little bit sort of grubby and so on, but that should clean off no problem at all. Now this is made by a company called Metamark, which I'm not sure you can make out in the sun there, just on the back. You can also have a good company like 3M and so on. But this wrap is a perfect match for the Mercedes Obsidian Black, as you can see here. And also features a kind of gloss effect, so once it's on the car it looks like it's actually paint. And then of course, moving on to very obvious, you need a pair of scissors, decent quality masking tape so you can actually attach this to the car while you're slowly putting it on. And then you want to measure up the actual size that you need to put on the car in the first place with this tape measure. A decent craft knife and squeegee. Now you want a decent knife like this, a real small sharp one, so you can actually get into the actual areas and grooves on the car without damaging the paint, and also most importantly so you don't actually tear or scratch any of the vinyl wrap once it's on there. And then not forgetting the squeegee, you use this to actually slowly push out the air bubbles in the wrap without causing any scratches or anything. I actually got that with the vinyl wrap, as you can see it's made by Metamark as well. And then not forgetting, you need a decent hairdryer or heat gun. Now I've used this hairdryer quite a few times for mods like this, as you can see it's a bit beaten up, but it works perfectly. I find that if you use a heat gun it's actually too hot and melts the vinyl wrap really quickly, so I prefer using an old hairdryer. Next up, I'm going to take the old strip and carefully position it on top of the new wrap to make a template. Now what's vitally important is you don't just cut an exact like for like size. What you want to do is make sure that it's at least 1 centimetre larger on all sides. This will become apparent later in the video, but in essence what you want to be able to do is wrap the excess part of the vinyl around the chrome trim which you're going to be applying it to, and then you want to cut off the excess. Now if you don't do this, chances are you're going to be able to see a lot of the chrome around the edges as it's not quite big enough. As I say, it will become more apparent later in the video. So just before we continue any further, I thought I'd show you my chrome strip after I removed the old vinyl wrap. Now you can see there's a little bit of damage, including this little vertical line here and the odd little chip and so on. Now the problem is that Mercedes now makes the chrome strips out of plastic rather than metal. As a result, it's just as susceptible to damage as the rest of the bodywork, from stone chips and also from people's hands and rings and so on. Now it's highly likely that you're going to be able to see this visible through the wrap once we've completed it. So now that you've measured out the vinyl strip to the correct size, you're going to want to line it up to the trim in question that you intend to wrap. When offering it up, be very careful exactly how you line it up, ensuring that the entire section is fully covered with the wrap. So starting at one end, attach the vinyl to the car with some good quality masking tape. Now this is going to hold it in place for you while you align up the other end of the strip, making things a hell of a lot easier to attach. attach the vinyl to the trim via masking tape, double and triple check its positioning across the entire strip. And as soon as you're happy with where it's located, I find it useful to gently push down onto it, create an imprint of the edges, so that you get a rough idea of exactly where the trim's located in relation to the wrap. Like I've started to here on the right hand side. And as soon as you're happy with the final location, we can now start removing the backing tape and permanently attaching the wrap. Start the process at whichever end you prefer, and make sure you have around 10 cm or so between the very edge and the first strip of masking tape. Now this will allow you to get a decent grip and pull it tight onto the trim. As you can see here, I have around 3 cm overlap of wrap, for which I'll be tucking underneath and around the boot lid. Once you remove the backing tape, you'll need to pull this extremely tight and stick it around the trim. Now if you don't do this, it will risk becoming unstuck in a matter of days. Now start removing the backing tape, and once it's fully removed, carefully start applying the wrap to the trim's edge, keeping it fairly tight at all times as you bend the wrap around the corner. Now don't worry about any air bubbles at this stage, gently press the wrap down with your fingers to the rough shape of the trim. And now grab your hairdryer and slowly start heating up the wrap to make it more malleable and easier to attach. When using a hairdryer, ensure that you only stay on each area for a few seconds or so, just enough to actually make the wrap warm and nice and flexible. Now whatever you do, don't continually point the hairdryer onto one section. If you do that, you risk actually burning it, which will cause it to warp and distort. And if you do that, you're going to have to replace the entire wrap section once again and start from the beginning. So here's a close-up showing the first section completed. And as you can see, no air bubbles whatsoever. And also it's a perfect match with the bodywork. Now you notice the top and bottom parts, they're the sections that we're going to be cutting out later on. So at the moment we're just concentrating on getting the actual wrap onto the car. And we'll come back to that later in the video. So let's fast forward to about 10 minutes later, and as you can see I'm about halfway through. Now lucky for me, when I'm filming this it's extremely hot and the car's in direct sunlight, so it's actually heating up the vinyl wrap really well. And the key is, as always, take your time, there's no hurry, and make sure that you heat the vinyl wrap enough to make it nice and flexible. And it appears I spoke too soon. Inevitably you're going to get the odd one or two situations like this, where you get a few creases or the odd air bubble appearing. Now you've got a couple of options. As long as the tape's actually nice and warm, you can either try and get it out just with your fingers, which I'm trying to do here, but it's a little bit difficult holding a camera at the same time, or again you can just use your squeegee. But as always, take your time and you should get it looking perfect. Right, so that's the entire vinyl strip attached to the car. And if you thought it had been difficult so far, this next bit is the tricky part. Next, we need to carefully cut off all the excess material and also carefully use the vinyl to wrap around the top and bottom edges of the chrome strip within the two grooves, giving it that perfect factory finish. To do this correctly, you must cut from the edge which is furthest away. This will give you enough wrap to fold inwards, covering up the chrome. And if you do it from the near side, you'll still be able to see the chrome visible as there isn't enough material to cover it. So this doesn't exactly help that I'm doing it while holding a camera, but it's really important that you don't press down too hard because you're going to damage the paint. So basically just press down enough to cut through the vinyl wrap, and then with a slow motion keep going towards you, and try not to stop at any time. Don't forget to pay extra care and attention to the ends, as this is where it can rip. Now, a perfect example of what not to do is just here. I haven't actually quite scored through the wrap enough and it hasn't perfectly ripped. So carefully, I'm just going to try and recut this through. But again, don't press too hard as you may end up damaging the paint. Now once you cut through, you should just be able to carefully pull the excess off. It's a balancing act between getting the blade all the way through the wrap and not so far through that actually scores and damages your paint. But once you get a good cut, it should just relatively easy peel off like so. Oh, same issue on the other end. And just repeat the process. Just try and cut through a little deeper. So the excess is now removed at the bottom and it looks a little bit messy. So here's where your squeegee comes in once again. So what you want to do is carefully push it in and then pull upwards. Now that should allow you to actually get the wrap attaching to the bottom of the chrome strip. Now this will take quite a while to do properly, and of course I'm still holding the camera, but it's a rough idea of what you actually need to do. Here's a clearer shot. So it's a case of working your way in, push it, and then flatten it down. Before I filmed this though, I obviously heated up the wrap beforehand. The key to getting this to stay put and not pop up again afterwards is heating up the wrap beforehand. The next part I need to tackle is this little lip underneath the boot lid. So what I need to do is actually cut off this excess once again, and with the heat gun, press it down into place and then cut off the excess. Now, as long as you do it properly and heat it correctly, this won't come up and it'll stay stuck forever. So here we go, completely finished. And the whole job took around about an hour or so. And I think it looks excellent. On the 4K camera which you're watching this on, it does pick up the odd little pit as I previously mentioned, but these are actually damage to the actual chrome, not the vinyl wrap. It just shows through. There's not too much I can do about that. Otherwise, I think you'll agree this looks excellent. Now, it's such a cheap mod to do for your own car. The vinyl wrap isn't too expensive these days if you get it in small amounts. And the beauty of it is, if you completely mess this up, just remove it and start again. After a few attempts, you're getting it looking good. And I'm sure you agree, this completely makes the rear of the car look more menacing, especially on this AMG model. So that completes this modification and the vinyl wrap process. Now, if it's as good as the previous one that was on there, you should get at least a year or so out of it until you get any scratches or so on that makes it look untidy and it needs replacing. Which also highlights the benefits of vinyl wrap. If it gets damaged or scratched, as I just said, you simply just peel it off and start again. As the wrap's so cheap, it's cost effective to just keep doing this time and time again without breaking the bank. Now, if you're feeling particularly brave, you can tackle the front grille or the side windows. I stuck only to the boot lid because I think that's the only part of the car which benefits from dechroming. But if you're feeling brave, by all means tackle the other areas. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It does help the channel. And if you haven't done already, consider subscribing and clicking that bell icon so you're notified as soon as I upload any other videos like this. Until next time, thanks very much for watching. Cheers.